Hello, how is everybody out there doing? I am talking to the fabulous Stacie Webb, author of Breaking the Chain. And for those of you who were listening to last segment with Sparkle Lindsay, like I said, butterflies, more butterflies, always the synergy. I am going to take this link and put it into the chat on how you can talk to Stacie. And Stacie, can you just share us, how did you come up with this beautiful, amazing book?
Well, I was raised in a very toxic family, and it's been about a year since I've talked to any of them, but throughout my life, I had looked for different resources, therapists, books, anywhere, anything that I could find to help me make things better. And I couldn't find it. So I figured I would create it. And in the process of thinking about what to do, my initial thought was just to write a book. And then I thought, maybe I'll make it sort of workbook style so that people have places they can stop and have thought-provoking questions, examples of how to get through whatever it is that they're going through. And not only that, I wanted to make it so that people had options on how to deal with things. I noticed a lot of the books are focused on one way to deal with things, and we as people don't deal with things the same way. So I thought options would be where I want to go with that.
I love that, and this is super, super timely. I read a lot all the time about people who need to set these boundaries and people who have this difficulty in family relationships. And you go through a lot in here about obligation to family and are these things healthy, and a lot of options. I love that what you did in here, and I wanted to highlight for everybody, and I'm going to talk about it, is the type of family boundaries that you have, and then how to set the boundaries. And I really just kind of want to read this part out loud. Is before you can communicate boundaries to others, you need to understand them yourself. Bam, powerful. Learning how to set boundaries starts with a self-reflection and a clear understanding of your values and beliefs. Setting healthy boundaries for dealing with toxic situations can mean identifying, avoiding, and eliminating triggers such as behavior-altering substances, inappropriate topics of conversation, and points of contention that lead to conflict. And I just love how you really frame it like you've got to know you. And so often we're just taught, this is your family, this is how families are. And I'm just going to throw it out there. One of the things I avoid a lot in life is movies and shows that are just mired in poor family dynamics. And I'm just like, this is just perpetuating this belief of bad families as being normalized.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously you had a reason you wrote this, some inspiration, but based, and then did a lot of research. So I'd like to just dig a bit more into this boundary concept and how you were able to develop something just really eloquent that's so applicable to people.
I think one of the things that I needed to figure out and do a lot of thinking on was I used a lot of my own experience in trying to find the answers about boundaries. I had a ton of questions about not only what were boundaries, how do you set them? What would my family be like after I set them? Was it going to be upsetting to me? That there's just it's so deep. It really is a deep subject. It was a lot of my own world experience that, yeah, a lot of my own world experience.
So
A
I
lot
really
of the
appreciate
questions.
the emotional. I could definitely tell this is a challenging topic, and you dealt with it bravely, and I think it really highlights that kind of, even when you write about the traumas there, the
Mhm.
trauma, what you've gone through, and I definitely want to honor that. So let's talk about, as you were writing this book, if someone reads this book, what do you want them to be able to take away? What is your goal for the reader and the audience?
I really want people to know that there is support out there. Yes, we don't talk about this a lot because of how the topic affects people, or maybe we feel like we're the only one that's ever going through this. Um, I have to say that writing this helped me to do some healing. And I've always been one of those people who wants to help people. And recently, in the last year and a half or so, I've been disabled, and this was just another way to help people. Um, I have figured out how to make this into a series and go from one issue to the next. Um, so I'm hoping that people will look for the next book. Um,
And
yeah,
what is your next book going to be focused on? Is it going to be the same or slightly different sort of book?
it'll be the same style. What I'm doing with my next book is adding a little bit more of my own experience into it, so that hopefully people start to trust that, I'm here to share my experience to help you figure out what you might need for yourself. But the one thing in adding more of my experience, I'm doing it sort of in a generalized way, so there's not uh, specifics to people or events. Um, so far, I've gotten really good feedback on this.
Right,
So
and this
I,
can be so hard to share this when you know that people who might know who they are and recognize themselves in those stories, and so,
Mhm.
you're definitely dealing with some struggles. What kind of goals, do you think someone should set, when they're dealing with this, when they're, like, in this cutting out the toxic family ties, reclaiming their life? It's New Year 2026. What can someone do to just those incremental steps to start improving and healing themselves if they're in that toxic family environment?
Well, one thing I would say is know to expect that you're going to have emotions, and they're not necessarily going to be the ones you think they will be. One of the things that I had to learn to do was to let myself sit with my emotions. If I needed to cry, let myself cry. Um, a lot of people these days tend to think that crying is for the weak. I say it's a strength, because it's letting that emotion out. It's getting that emotion out can help you think clearly. I want people to not be hard on themselves if they try, say, they don't know whether they want to go full no contact or low contact, which is all explained in the book. Try what you think you want to try. And if it's not right for you, adjust it so it's right for you. And know that, I'm not a therapist, but reach out to me. I'll sit and talk to you.
I really appreciate your sharing that, and I want to kind of touch on that piece of for everyone. We've had so many different themes throughout the day. Is emotional regulation, emotional intelligence. Emotions are a normal, healthy part of life. We all experience emotions, right? It is probably not appropriate for me to cry at a store if I get the wrong order. That's probably a little bit too much in most cases, right? But on the other hand, we do have those emotions. And why is it I feel like crying because I got the wrong order, right? Like that's not what is really the underlying thing. And going
Yeah.
into that safe space and being able to talk to somebody like Stacie in a safe space is so incredibly important that we recognize though that we have to process those emotions because if you don't process those emotions, it's not going to end well.
Yes.
So, Stacie, one of the things I want to do is thank you for being here. I want to highlight to all of our viewers that 24 Authors in 12 Hours is a great opportunity to share your stories. I started this during COVID. I know that there are a lot of scammers out there, and people talk about that. And I am very sorry. I'm very sorry that you are getting those. I know I am as well. I am not there to scam you. What I want is your time as an author. My goal is to help other authors. Helping you helps me. That's why I do this. We do have a donate button if you want to give money. What this does is help me to keep the platform running. And the other thing is we do have some cool merchandise if you want coffee mugs and wine glasses and stuff like that. Those little bits help. But really it is about sharing. It is about getting those stories out. In addition, I do have my own books. My books are available for free Kindle download today. Please go ahead. They are also available tomorrow, February 1st. And one of the things that's so crucial, and I really want to highlight Stacie's links are in here as well, is the algorithms are what controls everything. And Stacie, what has been your experience so far with the book and getting reviews?
It's been difficult to get the reviews. I actually have been actively going out and finding things like spotlight features and anything that I can find. I'm finding out that there are more authors, especially as indie authors, um, who don't have a lot of money to invest in certain parts of getting a book published. Um, and God forbid anybody talk about whether or not somebody's going to use AI. That's another ball of wax.
Don't worry, that's come up a few times throughout the day. And ethical use of AI is super important. This is what we teach at the university where I teach. And, I think somebody made it very clear earlier is to get rid of AI at this point is kind of like we're going to be in a cataclysmic place. So we just need to accept it and decide what level of AI, especially as, Grammarly and things are being built into everything. And more, even standard Microsoft products are having AI built in.
Well, the one thing I saw really recently, which really actually inspired me, a physician who was also an author jumped in on one of those many, I call them bait posts about the AI. And this person said that they had a patient who was writing a book who had something, I forget what the diagnosis was. But this physician pointed out that not everybody that uses the AI is doing it so negatively. That this patient had whatever diagnosis made it almost impossible for them to completely collect their thoughts. And so this person actually used AI to write the book, but used it as a tool to organize their own thoughts. So much like there's so many different things with breaking the chain, there's so many different reasons people do use AI.
Yeah, I feel like the healthy use of AI. I also teach how to use AI in your writing groups, and I was able to help a woman who was disabled, and she has a cognitive learning disability, and she would not
Mhm.
have been able to share her story authentically without the use of AI. So I think there's plenty of reasons to use AI. People are always going to come up with the good, the bad. I'm old. I totally remember when people like, if you're not using a typewriter and you use a computer, you're not really writing a book. I'm sure before that, when people were going from writing with a quill to writing with a typewriter, right? Like people need
Yeah.
to evolve. I am getting kind of close to the end of our segment, which went by super, super fast. And just so
Yeah.
happy to have people here. I do want to point out our next session is going to be February 14th. It is going to feature romance. It is going to feature romantasy. It is going to feature rom-coms, poets, all those things. If you can join us, and if you are an author in one of those genres, please reach out. Please just put a message in the comments. Please DM me. What I will say is author this book, this whole segment, 24 authors in 12 hours, is about helping authors, helping people like Stacie, showing off their books, giving this showcase, and making sure that your voice is heard, because it's not about competition. You've heard some of our authors talk about that, like our previous author, Sparkle Lindsay or James Woosley. Authors rise by helping other authors. You don't get one book. People who get books, like, we're kind of addicted. Like, you see the little library backgrounds and stuff. I mean, people love books. Okay. So amazing authors today. Add Stacie's book to your TBR. If you are out there struggling, if you're in a world where you're like, I have a problem with family boundaries, I almost wish I would have put your book out before the holidays. Maybe next year we'll do kind of a refresh before Thanksgiving when people go into those holiday seasons as a one-off. I also do a program, the Author's Cut, on my Spotify, because I think this is so important. And hopefully by then you're well into book 2, if not out already. I'm going to give you the final word before we go ahead and sign off, before we have our next author, Jay Guthrie Sr. So take it away, Stacie.
Well, around February 10th or 11th, I am going to be taking the e-version of this book on Amazon and heavily discounting it. So keep an eye out, because I think it's just another way to love yourself. It fits.
Thank
And
you.
keep
And
it.
Stacie, if you could share those links with me, I will make sure I share them on all the social media so that anybody watching can get those links.
Sure, I can send you plenty of links.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. And we'll see you on the next segment. Stacie, we will be talking more in the future. Thank you for so much for this very, very valuable book.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.